Thank you so much for having me here today. It is an honor to speak to all of you and represent the National Weather Service office in Amarillo. And what we're going to talk about today is what's in store for 2014 and what do we have to look forward to for this year and into 2015. So let's go ahead and get started. Who is the National Weather Service? Well, the National Weather Service is part of the federal government. Your tax-paying dollars pay for our services. We're under the Department of Commerce. Why? When we have weather, it costs money. When we don't have weather, it costs money. This is our local forecast office in Amarillo, right off of Highway 60. And in your packets, we have information, my business card, a climate brochure, and a magnet and pencil. Contact me. We want you to come in, see what your tax-paying dollars pay for. We'll give you a tour. If you have a child, spouse, parent, obsessed with the weather, scared of the weather, come on in and we'll show you what we can do for you. So this is a look inside our operations. We have 8 to 12 people on duty, Monday through Friday. On the weekend and overnight, we always have 2 meteorologists on staff all the time. So if you can't sleep and you really want to know what the weather was like on the day you were born, you can give us a call Saturday morning at 3 a.m. and we'll answer your question. We're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year because the weather doesn't stop Friday at 5 p.m. as much as I'd like for it to. These are all the different local forecast offices. So if you're not in the Texas and Oklahoma Panhandle, you can see what office covers your area. Me personally, I am from Alabama. I've worked in Memphis, Tennessee, Birmingham, and Huntsville, and I wanted to change a pace. But more importantly, I wanted to come out here because I heard you have really nice summers. I'm still waiting on that. Where I'm from, we get 56 inches of rain a year. My first full year here, we got a whopping 7.01. Talk about drastic. This is the area that the Weather Service office in Amarillo covers. We got the 3 Oklahoma Panhandle counties and the top 4 stacks of Texas Panhandle counties. So anywhere between Beaver, Guyman, Boise City, Dalhart to Canadian, to Wellington, to Hereford, and everything in between. We issue watches and warnings, forecasts, and outlooks for this area. And this is our website. weather.gov/AMA. Pretty easy to remember, weather.gov. You go here and you can click this link under climate called local. And you can get weather information updated twice a day, historical information for Amarillo, Borger, Dalhart, and Guyman. You can also get information from the Climate Prediction Center, which is a lot of the graphics that I'm going to use today. The 6 to 10 day outlook, 8 to 14 day temperature and precipitation outlook, the seasonal outlooks, and information on the all-important El Nino and La Nina. And speaking of El Nino, La Nina, and everything in between you, what are we expecting and how is this going to impact our drought outlook? So how can something so simple, a temperature change in the Pacific Ocean, impact our weather? Well, when we have El Nino conditions, we have warmer water in the eastern Pacific Ocean. In La Nina, it's much colder waters. And this impacts where thunderstorms develop in the Pacific Ocean and where that all-important jet stream, those upper-level winds, develop. So looking at the effects on the U.S. with El Nino and La Nina, El Nino is positive news for Texas. When we have an El Nino across in any particular season, we expect cooler and wetter conditions. The jet stream is much further south, so we get a lot more low pressure systems and cold fronts moving across the area. And we're snowier than normal, as well as we have more tornadoes too. When we have La Nina, warmer and drier conditions, jet streams much further north, so all the low pressure systems and cold fronts skirt to our north. And we have drought and wildfires. And this is one of those things, when we have La Nina, it's almost like a dirty word around here because we know the conditions are gonna be bad. You'd almost bet the farm on drought conditions staying. So historically speaking, El Nino and La Nina tend to develop in April through June. This is really when we're watching the signals, seeing which way it's trending. Now, if one develops, it only lasts about 9 months to 12 months, which is good and bad news. But what we saw in 2011 and 2012, La Nina stuck around for 2 years. And that caused quite a problem. These happen every 2 to 7 years. So right now we're in what's called neutral conditions. So we're waiting to see what's on the horizon. So this is a historical look at what each year has been El Nino, La Nina. The blue is La Nina, the red is El Nino. And you can see 2011, 2012 dips down in the blue, pretty strong La Ninas. 2010, it was a rainy year, right? That was an El Nino year. You can also see in the early 2000s, so from 2002 through about 2007, we had frequent El Ninos. And we had generally normal to above normal rainfall during those years. So what is the forecast? Now this is a model forecast. And you're like, Chrissy, you can't even get tomorrow's high temperature right. You expect me to believe this? Well, I think what to take from this is not one model is forecasting La Nina. Now that's pretty good news. You see the black dot right there for December. And you look for December, January, February, that's DJF. January, February, March, JFM. And you see by when you get to March, April, May, the MAM, and then April, May, June, AMJ, some models are diverting up into El Nino. About the time when we expect, if we're gonna transition into El Nino, La Nina, that's when it's gonna occur. So here's another look that has more forecaster expertise involved with the models. A consensus probabilistic forecast. Big words, but you can tell what the bar graph says. The green signifies neutral conditions. That's what we are right now. But as you can see, once we get March, April, May, June, July, that red bar is creeping up. That red bar is El Nino. And here are the exact probabilities for each time frame. And the thing to note on this, you look at the La Nina column, 6% or less that a La Nina is gonna develop in the next year. That is good news. We don't want La Nina. You can see that once we get to August, September, October, November, the bottom two columns, 49% chance of El Nino developing. So it's almost 50-50. So right now, we're in what's called neutral conditions. There's not one way, one signal for rainier than normal or below normal with neutral conditions. So we have to look at something a little more specific, short time frame, and that is the Pacific Decadal Oscillation. Big words meaning little El Ninos and baby El Ninos. So you can see underneath the El Nino globe, it says positive phase, Pacific Decadal Oscillation. That's essentially a baby El Nino. It means we're not quite strong enough to classify it El Nino, but it is impacting the weather pattern. And the same thing with negative phase. It's like a baby La Nina. And if you can remember back in 2012, the end of 2012 into 2013, we were anticipating a potential El Nino to develop. But something happened. You can see where it kind of peaks off and then crashes down in the middle of right around 2013. And what happened was a baby La Nina developed and killed our El Nino chances. So it's ENSO neutral conditions and the PDO is neutral. What do we look at then? Well, funnel down, and it's called the North Atlantic Oscillation. What weather pattern do you think we've had? The graphic on the right? The last month has been the graphic on the right. And so we can look at this and forecast 2 to 4 weeks in ahead, the weather pattern. But we're in for some big changes for this next 2 to 4 week time frame. We're gonna transition more into the graphic on the left. And this is the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm done with winter. This was the best thing I've seen all week, I'll tell you that. Looks like pretty confident, high confidence that above normal temperatures will be returning in the next 2 weeks. And we'll see it as soon as tomorrow and into the weekend where we're actually gonna get close to 80 degrees. So the drought outlook, this is where we were sitting 2.5 years ago. I had been here about a full year, and I was thinking, my goodness, what did I get myself into? Does this place ever get rain? What we're looking at here, this is September 20th, 2011. One of the worst droughts that this area has ever seen. If you combine the total rainfall for 2011, 2012 for Amarillo, it still does not equal what we're supposed to see in 1 year. Let that soak in. 2 years worth of rainfall did not equal what we're supposed to see in 1 year. This is worse than any kind of drought we saw in the Dust Bowl and in the 50s. This is where we stand today. Now, there are some areas that have not had beneficial rains. You can definitely see. California has come into the drought talk now. A closer look at Texas, this is 2011. You had 86% of the state of Texas in a drought that we call one out of every 100-year drought. Sure does happen a lot more often than that, around here. But 86% of the state, that's pretty amazing. When Southeast Texas is in a drought and they're not getting rain, chances are we're not gonna get rain either. We like for them to have a lot of moisture because it's easier for that Gulf of Mexico moisture to come up and visit the panhandles. Now, this is where we are today. Less than 1% of the state is what's called an exceptional drought. Areas such as Wichita Falls, south of Dalhart, still dealing with historical droughts. Eastern Texas Panhandle has definitely fared better than the rest of the area. So taking a look at the 3 years that I've been here, 2011, 2012, 2013, we've improved each year. We have, as far as rainfall. But not one location, Amarillo, Borger, or Dalhart, has reached normal precipitation. You look at Amarillo, Borger, and Dalhart in 2011, less than 10 inches of rain for all three places that entire year. In fact, there were parts in the Oklahoma Panhandle that had less than 5 inches of rain for the year. Now you look at 2013, there was some improvement, especially for Amarillo, but we're still greater than 5 inches below normal. And now this is satellite imagery of Lake Greenbelt from 2000 to 2012. Now you're gonna see that Lake Greenbelt's not really impacted until you get to 2011 and 2012. So starting over, 2000, 2001. 2005. 2010. Now this is Baylor Lake and Lake Childress. And you're gonna see the implications of drought a lot more with this one. This is 1984 through 2012. So here we are at 2005. Let's let it go through one more time. So here's 2000. So not much changes in the 90s, early 2000s. And then here's Lake Meredith, 1984 to 2012. And this is the one that you're going to be able to tell a difference. That's 2000. (2010), 2012. Let's do that one more time. So by 2006, it starts shrinking pretty rapidly. At this point, we actually did some calculations. It would take 25 days of 11 inches of rainfall consecutively each day over Lake Meredith without any evaporation to get Lake Meredith back to the level it was 10 years ago. Let that sink in. 25 days in a row of 11 inches of rainfall just to get it back to where it was 10 years ago. If you do the math, that would be us getting 12 years of normal rainfall 11 days in a row. Yearly normal rainfall. It's not going to happen. So this is a look from 2000 to 2013. We were doing okay as far as precipitation, especially the 2004 to 2010 timeframe. Very close to normal to even above normal. But what killed us was 2011, 2012, and we had record heat to go with that. That can definitely cause some major water issues. So here is the outlook for this season. The drought is expected to continue. Not much is changing on that note. So the seasonal outlook, the late winter, early spring temperature outlook looks like above normal temperatures are expected. We're transitioning our pattern from this really cold pattern to more of a warmer, milder one. And then the late winter, early spring precipitation outlook, Southwest Texas Panhandle, higher chances of below normal precipitation. Everybody else, essentially it's equal chances for below normal, normal, and above normal precip. So looking at snow, this is what, the top graphic is what Amarillo normally sees as far as snowfall each month. Our highest total is in January typically, second highest is in December, and then February, March are tied. I have the snowfall totals for 2012 and 2013. Can you tell which year was La Nina? The entire year of 2012, we had 4.9 inches. So far this year in 2014, we smashed that record. We have 5.6. So in the past 45 days, we've had more snowfall than we had all of 2012. And then the snowiest winter seasons on record. And I just wanted to point out 8 out of 10 of these are El Nino years. El Nino is good for this area for moisture. The spring, summer temperature outlook, May, June, July, looks like above normal temperatures expected. And here's the precipitation outlook. And you're like, Chrissy, I could have made this graphic. Well, what this means is there's no strong signal one way or the other. You would have looked at this graphic the last 3 years, we would have been in below normal chances. So I look at this as positive news. Equal chances for below normal normal, and above normal precipitation. And this is something that maybe they're hinting on that a potential El Nino is developing. And then tornadoes by county. And this is a good indicator of where the moisture is. Because if you don't have moisture, you're not going to get severe weather, you're not going to get tornadoes. It's typically east of the line from Amarillo to Dumas to Guyman. Why is that? Well, moisture is essentially climbing uphill across the panhandles. Wellington, about an elevation of 2,400 feet. Bootleg, 4,400 feet. You're asking that moisture to climb uphill. That's why a lot of times it stops Amarillo, Dumas to Guyman. Can't make it that far west. Tornadoes by year, I throw this up here. You see the two peaks, 2007, 2010, El Nino years. So if we're getting into an El Nino, maybe something to think about next spring. And then, of course, tornadoes by month, April, May, June is our active time. And then this graphic is hail probabilities. This may interest you. This is March 4th, March 18th, April 1st, April 15th, April 29th, May 13th, May 27th. Typically, the last week in May, first week in June is when we get our max hail in the Texas Panhandle. When did our hailstorm occur last year? May 28th. June 10th, June 24th, July 8th, July 22nd, August 5th, August 19th, September 2nd, September 16th. And when I first moved here, the rule of thumb was we get one last hoorah during the Tri-State Fair. We get a hailstorm, and then we're done. And boy, that's been the case. And that is all I have. I'll take any questions if anybody has any.